Hello everyone. So hopefully the audio comes out good. Today it's a bit jank because my field recorder ran out of batteries, but I was already in recording mode, so I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to use my mic on the laptop. So hopefully that happens, you know, hopefully that works out fine. But yeah, I'm also not on my NVIDIA GPU, so maybe it'll be a bit laggy. But I'm just trying to keep the my computer fan from going crazy. I run this thing on a Microsoft laptop, so it's it's what it is. But I've been having trouble since installing Linux on this thing with drivers since it is a Microsoft thing. So, I did want to make a quick announcement before I talk about what I've been working on in the UI and all that. I wanted to talk about the Discord server that we opened up. So, feel free to join. It's, a bunch of devs in there, and we are talking about SDFs and bounding boxes and et cetera, et cetera. If you want to join and share whatever you're working on, feel free. The goal is eventually to make it, maybe a networking thing or just a place to hang out. I know a lot of us have similar interests and like cool stuff, so I think it would be cool to hear from you guys. Also, maybe you do or do not know, but yeah, I've been doing the streams lately, and I've been really enjoying them because I don't know. It's when I'm the happiest is when I'm working, and it's just like the silence in my mind and all that, and interacting with everybody while I'm working is super fun. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I just wanted to say how much I deeply appreciate everybody who stops by and watches me ramble on and on about whatever I'm coding. So it's been fun to do that stuff live. We did the refactor for the frame buffers live. We did a lot of this UI stuff live, like some scaling stuff, some did that whole adding points thing, and all that. So without further ado, I guess I'll talk about the engine, right? So first of all, I wanted to share that this is what I was talking about last week with these beams that come down fog-wise. I exaggerated them just to show off what it looks like, because in the last video it was kind of hard to see, I realized. So, you can see these. I thought that they were kind of cool, but I think I might have to mess with the angles of them or make them more intentional. But as you can see, you can kind of see the vision that I had for it, right? Anyway, so there's that. And of course, today we're going to be mainly talking about the UI, and I'm going to draw some stuff like usual and talk about the pipeline, yada yada. So the UI stuff is cool. I wanted to, for whatever reason, go above and beyond with it. Actually, let me get out of editor mode here and then show off. I made this debug shader. I promised I would make more debug shaders. So this is what's happening under the hood, and now you can see, if you're familiar with UI stuff, this is not SDF based. This is pure geometry based. So we have to generate all of these, and just to wrap back around to the math of it all and how this all happens, I do it the same exact way that I do these corner fills for the holes. Is when we detect an angle that we need to fill in, we calculate the normals of these two edges and then find the bisector. And we'll talk about that more when we get into the code. But I just wanted to mention that it's essentially at the end of the day the same exact thing. I have this thing where recently my mouse is going onto my other screen, so you may see me a bit slow. But anyway, so that's what it looks like under the hood. And there's a lot. This line size is as small as it goes, I think. And it just fills in completely. But so that's how it looks like. So if I can go into editor mode here, this needs to be cleaned up all the editor stuff, but eventually this is going to be, the goal once again is to make it all with the UI system, remake this stuff with this system. So that's the goal. So as you can see, we can select UI elements. They all have different draw layers, and the ones that have the higher draw layer are queue sorted to get drawn last. So this blending mode may be a bit weird to the naked eye. What this blend mode does is that it takes the value of the geometry in the fog, adds it together, finds the length of the vector, and then multiplies its value by that. So where the pixels are darker, you get less UI. So it creates this contrast effect where you still have the contrast from the scene coming through into the UI. So that's super neat. I just thought to mention that, but I do plan on having like a regular opaque layout eventually. I just thought that it was kind of cool. It's kind of like, you know, the little thing in Coraline where the color changes or whatever. I thought that it was pretty cool to have these color changes happening, and it blends in, so whatever color, you know, it kind of changes the world to that color, and it looks pretty cool. So next I wanted to talk about all of the features, and hopefully I just tried to fix this add points button, so we're going to see if it works. It does. So the reason why I didn't just do SDFs for this was because I had this blind, stupid, crazy ambition of making just polygons, so any UI element with any functionality can be any shape was my goal with this, and I somehow achieved that. And you can watch the streams with me getting driven mad with how painful it may have been, but anyway, so this all works as you'd expect. Making circles is quite difficult, so you end up having to turn the entire thing into border, and then it makes a circle. But yeah, the values on this are just hard to get exactly right, but that's something that I'm still working on, obviously. But you could just technically change the border color and the inner color to the same exact thing, and then have a circle right here. Also, you may notice that there's this aliasing. The reason why we have that aliasing is because this is done at render resolution. And the reason why is because I like the fact that the post-processing stuff is done efficiently. It's done at render resolution. It composites all of this, and I'll draw out the pipeline in a little bit for you to visualize. But yes, this is not done at screen resolution. It's done at the resolution, the UI resolution, which I clamp at a reasonable value so that when I change the resolution to lower, it doesn't become completely unreadable. Anyway, so this is cool. You can add points. The add points is a bit jank, but as you can see, I'll talk about why this happens. I have the fix for this disabled because I wanted to show this off, but we can enable it later. But yeah, I just wanted to show this off. So essentially when you add points, it marches counterclockwise. So, or counterclockwise is, believe it or not, the other way. I always forget, but yeah. So it marches counterclockwise and then obviously doesn't see this. So the fix that I have for that is basically every outer line segment gets compared to every other line segment, and if they cross each other, then we basically take the indices of both of them and then snip that part of the array. So let's say that these two we find intercepting. Of course, because everything is counterclockwise, we know that the indices that are between them are going to be this entire loop-de-loop here, and so we just cut this off. It is a bit of a work in progress though, which is why I started with it disabled. Anyway, there's a reason why this isn't a part of every UI system, because obviously this is not very easy to do, or very but I plan on having just SDF shapes for you to be able to do. I started with SDF shapes, like rectangles and stuff, and then I just realized if I wanted to do completely arbitrary polygons, it was going to be a big problem. Like, for example, I know of many games that have, like, oddly shaped buttons during battle events, which I think is super cool. I haven't actually played Persona 5, but I know the buttons that they have during the battles. I always thought that UI was super cool when I first saw it. I was like, it's like super expressive and weird. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit, but yeah, you can add. I don't have the right one selected, but you can add points to this, and it'll change, right? So there's that. It basically regenerates the inner and outer outline, and I'll get into the code about that later. So we do have. I did want to show off if I can make this a readable color. So we do have functionality now to make a slider out of any of these, which is something that I did off stream recently. I know that this shape looks ugly, but anyway, you can also, something I should show off before I show off the slider stuff, is that you can, for whatever reason, this sometimes gets sticky. But yeah, so you can select points and then move the points themselves. This is super jank, to be honest. But yeah, I've played around with this. So the issue here is that it actually has nothing to do with the logic for the shapes at all. It's just the draw array collapsing, because essentially what I have for the draw, which you saw in the debug that I just had, is that it's all coming from the center. Essentially, it goes around the center. So having concave holes becomes difficult. So I have to implement a different triangulation so that the shape doesn't collapse. It only is actually collapsing on the visual side, not actually the outline. So anyway, I should also show off the resolution changing. So this button changes the resolution. As you can see, the UI didn't become unreadable, which it did before. So the resolution is clamped for all of that, and that's neat. Anyway, so that's cool. I did that on stream as well. So let's get back into here and start talking about this. So we do have sliders. If I do this, and then I move this over here, and then I turn this into an interactable type 4, I'm eventually going to have string arrays for all of this and drop downs, but I just honestly, just for prototyping, I didn't do it. So I think it's a behavior ID of 4, and as you can see, these slider options come up, so we can change the length, and this is in pixel space, so we're going to want it to be pretty big, so I'll just put it straight to 100, and then the direction, it automatically normalizes it, as you can see. I wanted sliders in any direction, so these can go diagonally, straight up and down, whatever. So this is going to change the bloom, as you can see, and that's super cool. So this is just basically to demo it is why I implemented that. But yeah, obviously that's going to change the values of everything later. But yeah, so there's that. Once again, for whatever reason, I think it's an i3 setting. My mouse just keeps on going to my other monitor. But as you can see, that works. We also have the ability to save and load layouts. So if I save this layout, obviously this button was over here, and now when I what am I doing, to be honest? I just pressed I just should move this over and then press load layout. So we go to load layout, and then you can see it came back. So that just works fine, and that's going to be the functionality to make your own menus. The idea is that you have different interactable types, so buttons, sliders, color pickers, whatever is all going to be under this enum'd interactable type. And then the behavior ID is going to be the scriptable kind of editor-facing thing where you can just say, I want this shape to change whatever shader value or resolution or setting, etc. You get what I'm saying. Anyway, so if you take off the corner and take off the border of these shapes, as you can see, this is going to be a lot more stable and a lot less janky. If I go to select points, I still have to make this more. This is why I was kind of like debating not making a video yet, because it still is kind of janky, of course, but yeah, so it is still janky, I will admit it, but I'm going to continue working on it and hopefully get it to a better place. But anyway, I'm going to stop playing with it now. I have eventually made some really cool shapes with this, but it does take a lot of tinkering. The good thing is that I implemented the save shape thing, which, actually it doesn't. So the save and load works on pointers, so it saves it at the end, which is something that I need to change. I was just lazy and didn't want to deep copy it every time, but as you can see, now we have two of this shape. So you can save and load one singular shape. The idea is eventually you can just have a list of shapes, but that's going to be, of course, annoying to implement. But of course you can see where we're going with this. The text, I think I showed this off. No, I didn't show this off in my last video, but yeah, the text is a thing. Of course, this updates in real time, which is fun. We also have width, which I don't have being able to show, but obviously it wraps. I have to implement justifying to text box, left and right and middle and all that, so that's something that I have to implement, but I hope that you can see where I'm going with this. Obviously you can change the text here to whatever, so let's say I want to say round, because it's the same thing, that the first thing that came to my mind. Now it says round. Or if I don't want it to say anything, then I can make it, of course, invisible. So that's fun. This was supposed to be a fill color, but we didn't end up finishing implementing that. But of course you can also change it to red or whatever you want it to be. So that's cool. It's cool. And you can make a new text box, and that's our default. I haven't set it up to make one where you click on it, but yeah, this is a text box, obviously. And of course we're gonna add support for more fonts. I have a texture atlas set up for fonts already. I just it's kind of a pain. This is all done in MSDF, if you know what that is. So I have to generate those separately and then load them in as PNGs and JSONs, and then on map load we load them into a array of fonts. So generating a new font and setting that up is kind of annoying, but yeah, this is a DOS font. Okay, so I showed off pretty much all of the new things, and hopefully you enjoyed that. So to get into the code that does all of this now, I did want to show that off. I did also want to, this is kind of a really funny way of writing this, but this trim loops from counterclockwise outline is what I was talking about earlier. So of course what this does is it nested loops through everything and then checks if the segments intercept and then trims that part of the loop, and then it just gets called in a wild loop until there are no overlapping segments anymore. It is still janky, of course, but as I said, this is a work in progress. I'm a bit out of sorts today. I did want to talk about this. So this is how we do the rounded corners and do the triangles and emit the triangles. So this is the exact way that I do my corner fills in 3D. I commented this out so you can read through it, but I just wanted to show the code off because it was quite painful to do, and if you're interested in, for whatever reason, implementing this yourself, then go for it. So this, obviously, this had to be sign changed, which I was super confused on for a very long time, is why, OpenGL is upside down, of course, in screen space, and I forget this because I'm working in 3D and I never have to deal with screen space, but since doing all this UI stuff, I actually have to pay attention to that, and that is, incredibly painful to have to change signs. But yeah, so the normal, you have to switch the sign here. And then yeah, these points get generated. You're gonna have on the outer arc the same exact amount of points as the inner arc, because the outer arc just adds the border to the inner arc. And then I wanted to show off how we add it to the draw buffer. This is the code that does that. As you can see, and this is all of the inner fill. The C is the center, and the A and the B are iterating through the inner outline. And then obviously we do this for the outer outline, which is the outer and inner, going back and forth. And this is a triangle, and this is a quad, and that's how we iterate all of the points in the outline when we do it. So, as I said, still a work in progress, but I think we're actually making good progress, and we're getting there. So almost to the point where I'm ready to make the UI or whatever. It is kind of finicky, especially when you're moving around points with the mouse, as I showed off earlier. But so these are our hard-coded values. I wanted to also show off the UIElement struct. I think that this started as a very simple struct and then became more and more complicated as time went on. But yeah, so we have 3 different arrays here. One for the outline, which is actually just the counterclockwise sorted points that are logical, and we have the inner outline, which is obviously the inner rounded edge, and then the outer outline, which is the outer rounded edge. And so every time we change the outline, we have to generate a new inner and outer outline, of course. These I didn't end up using, these draw triangles. This was supposed to be the new triangulation thing that I'm working on, so that we can have concave shapes and not have that have a bug where a shape just collapses. But yeah, so that's going to be the next thing that I work on. And then these corners were another idea. But all of this stuff is kind of self-explanatory if you know something about it. Then so text array is an array layer is if you want to have a texture as a UI element. This is the support for that. I haven't actually done the backend for that yet, but that's something that I have to work on, is making UI texture arrays and putting that into our texture system. I also have draw layer, so this is how you layer UI elements. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. All of these are like scriptable enums that later the engine, I guess, is going to have this. I don't know if I'll make my own scripting language front end or make it in a scripting language. I don't really understand how that works per se, but that is my goal, is to make the engine editable in a way where you could script it in a simpler language than in C. So that's that. Obviously, these UI groups are these. This is this right now. The goal for the scroll is I wanted to do this interesting thing with these scroll bars where you can have diagonal scroll bars, and then the direction of whatever UI elements they are shifting can go in any direction, which I think is going to be super fun to implement. I already know how I'm going to implement it, so maybe I'll end up doing that on stream. Maybe that'll be a fun thing to do. So, what else did I want to touch on here? I also am now realizing that I should probably compile again, because I did forget that I added the entire texture backend for loading and changing textures between my last video and now. Wow, I guess I have done a lot of things, and then I forgot that I did them. But yeah, so let me launch again and then show that off. I don't remember if I had this menu last time, but oh yeah, I was talking about last time the Moire effects, or Moire. I can't remember how to pronounce it. But now you have the ability to change the mipmaps, and we're eventually going to have, I guess, mipmap levels editable straight up, but right now it just automatically generates the default mipmap levels based on the texture size, I think. So yeah, so that toggles that basically, and it does it for every individual texture if you want to have the trippy lines, or if you prefer to have the mipmappy stuff. At higher resolutions, all those lines end up going away, but at low resolutions, they are a bit of a problem, as I mentioned in my last video. But I also added this backend. It is still, I didn't like exactly finish this, but it does let you add any PNG in your or JPEG in your texture directory as either an entity texture or a static texture for geometry. So let's say I want to have a stone floor 2 as an entity texture. Well, I just added that in, and then we're going to go to entity selection mode. We're going to close the save and load menu, and then we're going to select this entity. I did all of this on stream. I'm just remembering this. So this entire menu changes all of the different entity properties, and obviously we have stone floor 2 now, so we changed the texture for this entity, and as you can see, it's stone floor 2. So that's a really neat menu. I haven't really played around with the entity selection. Of course, you can also shift select multiple entities, as you can see, so that's all cool. And the cool thing that I did live actually on this was creating the ranges. So as you can see, we have 3.0 to 7.5, and then if I have to move my scale up, but as you can see, we're changing everything in the selection, and the range updates as well. So that's something I wanted to have, and I don't know why I make things so complicated, but the idea is to make it as user-friendly as possible. So let's say you're making a Quake style map and you have a bunch of enemies and you want to shift them all over just a tiny bit, then you can just go in here and select all of them and move them over. So I didn't really spend that much time working on this, to be honest, because I know I'm going to have to refactor all of it, and it's going to be painful once I add in like proper meshes and proper models. So I'm anticipating the refactor on that. It is quite painful thinking about it. All the things I have to change, but yeah, obviously all of this stuff works as expected. We have frame cooldown, which, as you can see, it's making them faster, and that's cool. And you can also take frames off, as you can see. So that's all fun. Yeah, that's that. And you can make them all disappear and make them all reappear and make them all alive and then change their type. I don't actually display the type because this was a work in progress. I wonder, can you change the texture to all of them? Yeah, you can. So that's cool. That's neat. They're ghosts. Okay, so I guess I showed that off, and that's all fun. As far as like the way I think about it, that most engines do UI at screen res, and that way, most of the time you don't have to actually deal with all the funky scaling stuff that ends up going on. But I do it at render res. The reason why is because I think it's cool for the UI to be like within the diegetic world of the game. So, and we get all that fancy blending going on. So I wanted to draw out the rendering pipeline. So we start with geometry. This is split into two. This is split into two draw passes because we want to have flexibility if you maybe want to have like fake depth and you want to have a second draw pass that's drawn on top of the 3D geometry. I don't know exactly what the use case is, but I had this idea where maybe you wanted to draw something far away in logical space, but on top of the logical space depth. Maybe it's not the most efficient way to do that, but I kind of wanted to set up that in case I do something with that later. Anyway, we do the geometry, then we do the entities, and this is all on one FBO because it's all depth wise, right? We have to keep track of it on the same depth texture, and then we split off into UI the volumetric stuff. So we split off here. We don't do these obviously in parallel. We do the volumetric stuff and then the UI, but these are on different frame buffers and happen at different resolutions. You can change the resolution of the volumetric stuff. You can also change the resolution of the UI stuff. It's completely separate. The reason why is to go back to what I said in the last video. It was that you want the volumetric stuff to be done performant and possibly at a lower resolution than the geometry and whatever. So the way I have it is that UI and the volumetric stuff get clamped at a certain resolution that it looks good at, and that's the way that works. And then obviously, we still have this FBO, and then we composite all of these in the post-processing. Actually, I am skipping a step here. The volumetric has a step where it upscales to this, with this. It upscales based on the depth texture here, and it blurs with respect to the depth. That's what I talked about last week, and so this is actually what gets sent into post. So all of these three textures get sent into post, and then they get added separately. So certain effects get done with the UI, and certain effects happen with the volumetric fog and lighting. The volumetric fog and lighting gets pretty much no post-processing. It gets no dithering. It gets very little tone shaping, and I really enjoy having it separate. It creates this this kind of bringing together of the more retro stuff that's lower resolution and this high fidelity volumetric stuff that has a bit more of a flat tone. So that gets sent into post-processing, and then we finally do bloom. And then eventually we might also have an optional anti-aliasing here, or have the ability for you to do anti-aliasing in between these steps. I already thought about doing it for the UI. I think that it was a bit overkill, at least for now, with the UI to do anti-aliasing. I don't think it's going to do much. I think that the reason why the UI is a bit blocky is just literally because I'm doing it at rendering resolution. And so maybe we just have the ability to scale it up, because once you scale it up, all of the harsh edges go away, I realized. So that's that. And then we upscale to screen resolution. So that's how that works. I think I showed off most things, even though obviously they are works in progress. I do typically have this thing when I make these videos that I want to get to a really good, solid stopping point. And I was just realizing with all this UI stuff, it might take a little bit longer, and I wanted to make a video in the middle of it, because I think that I've gotten a lot of stuff done, even though maybe it's not exactly finished yet. I did realize that I explained this a bit poorly, and I wanted to go back and explain the angle again. So we have, I drew out these points and we're going this way. So we end up on this point, let's say, and so we take these 2 points. We take the edges, so this is done by subtracting, right? We find that distance, or find that the vector, and then we find the tangent for the normal, right? And then we find the bisector using those 2 normals, and then we iterate over the bisector from the starting angle to the end angle. And what we do is, I was realizing, let me draw this out, is that you have this and then this sharp point, right? And so what you end up with, these are points, is that what you end up with is you end up with a bulge doing it. Well, I mean, it's actually this. With a bulge doing this, that doesn't actually round the edge. For example, rounding the edge would be like this. So what you end up having to do is that you're inset a little bit, right? You're inset a little bit, but not completely. And so what you do is you take the direction between the point and this rounded point, and then you subtract the border to inset it so that it does this instead. So this comes down into here, and now we have that. And that's how it works. Again, a bit finicky. I'm probably going to change it a bit, which is why I'm not super focusing on it, because it is pretty finicky, especially when you have more points. The angles sometimes get sharper, but I think if you're going to have custom shapes, then you're probably going to spend a little bit of time editing them, and then you're probably going to save the shapes. Like, for example, if you want, like, you know, a shape like that, where it isn't exactly a rhombus, or, you know, a shape like, you know, whatever, then you probably spend, like, a while making it, and then, you know, Or I could just make it so that you can import these from some file. Maybe you make them in an image editor. I would have to do some research on that. But anyway, I wanted to redo my talk about this because I know that I was wrong, because I don't actually scale towards the center of the shape, although it would be a very similar inset. I take this and then this. Anyway, what I end up doing is I end up sitting outside and with my phone, and I write out these lists. I know a lot of people probably have Markdown or whatever that they do their checklists with, but I just do it on my phone because I like to have a clear head when I do it. So I'm going to go down the list of what I have next. So scroll bar is next. That's gonna be probably easy to implement. We have drop down. That's next as well. This I had next to it painful in my list. I also had make memory failsafe so we don't NK assert crash nuclear style. I had color picker here. I want you to be able to visualize whatever color you're picking. I had also here 2D editor for 3D vector directions, ? Useful for lighting, research that. I'm not going to write that out. I had pause menu. Put existing shader pipeline as options. We already started that, as you can see earlier in the video. We have toggle particles and edit current snow properties. Music volume / make music ? If you don't know, which you might not, I actually am a big music guy. I briefly went to school for music composition. Music is actually, one of my main interests that I do. I haven't made music on the computer in a long time. I usually, in recent years, play guitar, but acoustic guitar specifically, but I do want to maybe open up a tracker and do the stuff live on stream. Recently I installed Bamboo Tracker again and gave it a whirl again, just to see if I still have the touch, and so maybe that'll be like a fun half stream idea where I just at the end half of the stream I just make some music live. I think that would be pretty fun, if I can remember how to make music with regular notation and stuff. That would be fun. SDFs for known shapes, meaning rectangles, squares, circles, just to have support for it, because they're easy to drop in. If we just have a circle, then we don't have to play with the options and do all that. Add lighting to 2D space. I had this idea where, once again, having the world of the game be in the menu itself. This idea where the light is kind of creeping around the menu, kind of like maybe a lens flare-y kind of beam coming through. I don't know how I'm going to implement that, but that's something that I want to do, obviously. Remove existing menus. I wanted to move back to the lighting system next and do maybe an energy map for proper diffusion I wrote, and then load default menu options from in any. So that's the roadmap for what I'm going to be working on next UI-wise. The reason why I decided to do UI now instead of doing the meshes or whatever is because I think the further we delay all of this stuff, the more annoying it is going to be to refactor all of the nuclear debug menus later down the line. I think that we just had to take the plunge and make the UI library now, because if we delayed it any longer, there's already so many menus that I need to completely shift over. So all of that. Right now, the layouts that you make are saved to JSON. So that all works actually surprisingly well. So hope it actually won't be that painful. I just have to, I'll show you what it looks like actually. So let me go here and go to, it's at the top of this file. So what it looks like is it's literally just a switch case with whatever element is when you press it. When the state changes, we just basically, these are going to be the scriptable enum IDs, and they all execute different code. So right now we've resized render, and then this controls the bloom. Pretty standard stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much that. I did also want to talk about just kind of like free form at the end of this video, because I've been thinking about it a lot recently. I don't know, I've kind of realized, this isn't particularly engine related, but I thought maybe you would find this interesting. I've realized that I'm just kind of, I think of things very differently than most people, possibly. I don't know, since doing this stuff live, and also I got this very, very odd comment, and of course I didn't take it personally, but it was obviously coming from someone who automatically what was in his mind is like, what are you selling me? And believe it or not, I don't make any ad revenue off of these videos. I don't have enough views or subscribers, or I'm not selling you anything. In fact, I'm doing the opposite. I'm giving you something for free. In fact, a goal that I have with this project is to just, in a few months, when things are maybe in a good place, I'll just release an alpha of this engine, not as a fully fledged thing, but just a binary that you can download that you can play around with the map editor and whatever. So that's a part of my goal with it. So I don't really, I don't know, my kind of dream is that the way I'm able to make money off of things is just by the act of making them rather than selling something. I, believe it or not, I don't really know if I agree with the act of selling art. I don't know, I'm a big fan of free things. I know that not everybody has the ability to buy art, and I think that it's super cool when things are free and just available for people. So I've never really felt good about selling anything as a product that I've made. I prefer to, because for me, and this may differ for most people, I know it does, because it's been a pain point for me my entire life, is that I'm not goal oriented, and that I don't care about having made things. I care about making things. I don't really enjoy having made things. You know, when a project ends, it's kind of like finishing a good book for me. It's not something that I find any sense of accomplishment or happiness from. I don't derive any of those good emotions, good dopamine from it. Instead, it's kind of like this emptiness for me. When I'm working on something is when I'm the happiest. To be honest, it's like pure silence in my brain and just like so much peace and whatever, but yeah, I don't know. I guess it's not typical to think of things that way. But I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's not typical to think of things that way, but it's been kind of a thing that has been my entire life. So I thought to mention it because I don't know. It's weird, you know. My engineering teacher when I was a kid, for example, said that I was going to be a jack of all trades, master of none, and that I was never going to do anything good, or the other people in my past, such as bosses, partners, parents, getting mad at me because I'm not goal oriented or whatever. It's pretty, believe it or not, common for the thing is that I'm trying to touch on is that it's a pretty negative quality about me because someone had to build the bridge and make a really strong bridge that works completely for someone to be able to get to the other side of the bridge, and not fall in the water and die. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is that me having my head in the clouds is not very practical, and not thinking about an end goal is not very practical, and making sliders that move sideways is not very practical. Blah 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 blah. But I don't know. As I said, I want to do what I enjoy, and what I enjoy is making things, not having made things. So that's a secret that I'll let you in on. I don't like admitting it, but I don't like finishing things. I don't. It makes me feel quite sad when I finish things, and I know that it makes everybody else really happy when I finish things. But yeah, if you were expecting the next Minecraft, I don't know if I can deliver that. But what I'm trying to deliver is just cool content, I guess, that's informative and cool to see. I guess things getting made. I don't know if there's really a market for that, but I don't know. I get into these states where I have in my mind like a vision of something that I want to create, and I'm just living in it. And for me, most recently, it was this kind of dark world with these stark shadows and these people all dressed in black, like and kind of like with this ghostly gas kind of coming off of them. If you know, for example, Pulse by Kurosawa, he has these ghosts that come to life, and they look like walking shadows, something like along those lines, and they were their dialogue was telling stories that I'd heard during my life, just from talking to people on the street and et cetera, et cetera. And there's this one particular story in my mind that came to mind when I was kind of daydreaming about this, doorman that I met in, I want to say it was between 86th Street and 92nd Street, somewhere there, kind of like below Harlem in New York, and or maybe that counts as Harlem. I don't really know what street it, but Upper East Side, and sitting outside of this. He was standing outside of this fancy building, and he had his hands clasped behind his back, and he was incredibly happy and content and at peace. And he was standing there in his suit in front of these rotating doors, and this, it was a good building, like 3 blocks away from the projects, though, and he had this he was just like rotating his head and like nodding and greeting people that just walked by on the street, and I approached him and I said, like, "Hello, sir, if you don't mind me asking, how did you get this job?" And we had this conversation about when he was a young teenager. He wore his father's clothes. Was probably too young to legally be able to work, but he walked up to this building and he just asked if they needed somebody to watch the door. And he must have been like 50 something. We had this short conversation about him growing up and him getting this job, and I don't know. I definitely have ADHD, and so a job like that would not stimulate me nearly enough. You know what I mean? But regardless, I kind of related to that. Like, that's what makes me feel the most content, is just kind of doing the things rather than accomplishing the things, if that makes sense. Anyway, this was a very long. I don't know if anybody would be interested in me rambling about this, but very long way to say that I don't know. I think of things very differently, and I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. I think just economically, socially, we think of this as like laziness or whatever. But maybe it's also just chronic depression and the fact that working takes my mind off of it or whatever. But I don't know. I live a pretty peaceful life otherwise. I just, it's what I enjoy. So yeah, I guess that's the video this week. I guess I just wanted to do that rant at the end. Not a rant. It wasn't me being mad at all. It just I don't know. I've been thinking about it recently. Maybe somebody out there relates to this. Maybe you don't, and maybe you think it's it's stupid, but I just wanted to say it because it's possible that people that have found this channel or whatever and enjoy all of this stuff maybe we're kind of similarly brained in some way, and you might relate to that a little bit, you know. But anyway, I guess feel free to join the Discord, as I said earlier, and I'm gonna be continuing doing the streams because I think that I really enjoy them. Honestly, recording videos is kind of nerve-wracking for me, and it kind of it's difficult for me. It's something that I have to set time aside for, and I really like making the long videos, and I know that they take up everybody's time or whatever, but my I prefer them because I don't know, maybe I just like listening to myself speak. But I don't think I'm very egotistical about it. I just think I don't know. Anyway, once again, thanks for watching. Hopefully I get the UI stuff working better, and I start refactoring the UI. I'm probably going to do that part on stream, so yeah. As always, I appreciate all of the support and all that. So, yeah, thanks for watching.